Welcome back to the Funding Blueprint, the show where we dive deep into the minds of operators, strategists, and founders who know what it really takes to build and scale a company. I'm your host, Cece Nahaman, and today's guest is Jason Katz, founder and principal at GMA Growth Engines, where he helps startups and growth stage businesses turn chaotic ad systems and messy CRM stacks into well-oiled growth machines. Before launching GMA, Jason led growth and ops at high-profile startups like Shutterstock, and spent over a decade at American Express, sharpening his skills in performance marketing and scalable systems. In this episode, we're talking about why growth engines aren't just a nice-to-have, they're essential infrastructure for any founder serious about scaling with clarity and control. Jason will break down the make-or-break role of CRM, why most stacks can fail, and how clean data and attribution can supercharge your ads, even in unpredictable conditions. If you've ever felt like your marketing is working, or you can't quite prove it, or your systems are running, but no one's sure how well, this is a conversation you'll want to hear. Let's get into it. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cece. Great to be here.
Of course, we're so excited to have you. So let's just jump right into it. Let's start with foundation. What does it really mean to build a growth engine for an early stage company?
Sure. So growth engines, just so you know the parts, there's product, there's community of new and existing customers, which is fueled by paid and organic channels. And then there's the team that does all the work, and CRM enables that team to work well. Underlying these three key functions is data and a deeper understanding of all the details. All companies have these three components in their startups, but not all of them get these details right. And when you're dealing with all of the uncertainty of startups, you want to get all of these, you want to take all the chaos that can appear in these three parts, and you want to put those in your favor. I won't talk about all of the components during our conversation today, but specifically in paid ads, it's going to be more than just beautiful creatives. The underlying data is going to be one of the ways that you grab back control. And then with CRM, making your team work effectively, up to 70% of those implementations fail. So having a really deeper understanding of your company is really going to set you up to build a really good growth engine.
Yeah, definitely. Can you dig a little bit more into why systems like CRM are just as essential, if not more important than the creative aspect to those paid ads, for example?
Sure. So when you're thinking about ads, beautiful creative is exciting. It gets people to react, and it's exciting. But if you think about the context of those ads are served on enormous platforms like Meta, Google, LinkedIn, TikTok. Those platforms, while there are brilliant people who work at the company and program those platforms, there's actually ad servers. There are systems who are deciding which of those beautiful creatives are going to be served. And when you're thinking about those ad servers, which are deciding, am I going to show up in front of Cece, who's the perfect person to buy this product, or show up in front of Jason, who is not the person who's going to buy the product? We both may think that there is a creative that's beautiful that may get us to click, but which one of us is going to buy? A lot of that signal and insight that's given to the ad servers in these systems is driven by the data that startups and companies share with the ad platforms. So that initial click that we're both interested in, if all we share is that initial click, which is very easy to send that type of data, they may say, give me the ad, and then the company's not going to get the sale. But if the startup is transmitting beyond the initial conversions, the purchases and the form fills, if they're sending real outcomes like booking leases, subscriptions, or a deal that's progressing through a company's pipeline, if they're sending the information that's closer to the revenue, to the profitability, to the LTV, the full value of the customer, and you're taking that information from the back end systems, like reservation systems, e-commerce systems, CRMs, the source of truth of companies, not the ad platforms, and you're sending that information into the ad platforms, then you're giving a true signal that I want my ad to show to CC and people like CC, and even though Jason will click, I know that my company is going to thrive because I'm going to get the right profile of customer. And then beyond that, there's a lot more geeky stuff about what you do after that point, but I just want to make sure that point gets through clearly. The data you transmit is going to be as, if not more, important to your success than that beautiful creative that I still, I get excited by also, but you need the data.
Definitely. And I think that framing is definitely super helpful, especially in a world where startups are constantly shifting priorities just to stay alive. You've said that growth engines allow startups to scale with both clarity and control. And in a fast moving, often unpredictable startup environment, can you break down a little bit what that actually looks like in practice and walk us through how having the right infrastructure helps a team make faster decisions, manage spend better, and avoid those costly pivots?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So, you know, I love startups. I love working with startup founders. I've worked with a lot of founders over the years. And the only constant in startup life and life generally is change. Volatility, uncertainty. You don't know what's going to happen, but you charge forward. In that kind of environment, big risk, big reward, you need to somehow find a center. You need to find some control in the chaos. And what we found working with lots of different startups, different size companies, different industries, is that it all starts with an excellent performance dashboard, getting real-time visibility into how your company is performing. Agonizing over the statistics that you're going to look at. It's tempting to put 100 stats into a spreadsheet, look at that every week, but then slowly people get fatigued. If you choose the top 3 to 10 metrics that are a barometer of how you're doing, that becomes a great foundation in the middle of all that uncertainty. We often will come up with quarterly, semi-annual, annual roadmaps with companies, and then we'll have regular check-ins each week to look at the performance dashboard to see how are we doing, how are our programs doing, what's going on externally. Were there trades and tariff implications that happened recently that we now need to factor into our strategy? It can be because of things that we did or things that are completely out of our control. But if we look at that on a regular basis and we have all the people, all the operators in the room, then we're able to make fast and smart decisions. We can detect things like rising customer acquisition costs. Are there issues in the sales pipeline? Are there bottlenecks in delivering customer support? Are the conversion rates with our checkout, is there a drop-off there? Noticing these things fast, when they're great, we all celebrate, we laugh. It's a great time during our weekly call. When the results are struggling, that we know that they're struggling immediately. We can diagnose where those challenges are happening, and then we can have open and honest conversations and make smart hypotheses and moves based on what's happening. That's where we're able to keep things on course, accelerate things, pivot, make moves that are so critical when, delays are very expensive, especially with early stage, with startups, limited runway, limited resources, You're thinking about how many months of runway you have. These decisions can bring you great comfort and great success as you're trying to think about your next milestones.
Yeah, definitely. So once that foundation is in place, like we've mentioned, ads often become one of the first levers for growth. But like we've said, a lot of teams get stuck chasing the creative wins without a real data layer beneath it. So let's kind of circle back to that ads talk because, like we said, strong creative often gets the spotlight. But you've made the case that without clean signals and attribution, even the best ads can't scale. So, what are the key data systems or practices that founders need to have in place to make sure that their ad spend is actually driving measurable outcomes?
So we started speaking before about tracking the revenue and the profit and what really matters.
Yes.
Doing that has a lot of details that you need to think about in order to actually effectively communicate with the ad server machines and the AI that underlies the ad servers. So this is a little geeky, but I promise if these details are worthwhile to get right. So the data that we send over, oftentimes we'll call it signals. There are multiple ways to communicate with the ad servers and the ad platforms. One way is through your website or your app, through code that you put into those interfaces. It's a relatively easy implementation. Again, you have to think about what signals, what data you're going to configure into it, but when you set that up, that's one way of sending data. Those can be impeded by ad blockers, private browsers, cleaning cookies. There are a lot of things that can get in the way and challenge that tracking. So over the last decade, all of the major ad platforms have launched conversion APIs, which is transmitting data via databases. So the best practice nowadays is to use both methods of transmission, the digital method and the database or server method. And then you will get as much signal and data as you can send to the ad platforms. But then the next piece is that you don't want to over communicate. You don't want to tell them CC bought twice, but she actually only bought once. So then there's an idea that when Jason and CC click on ads, we need to have a unique user ID for each of us so that when we send over that data across different transmission methods, we send over a unique and clean set of data to the ad platforms. What we just spoke about there can take many months to execute properly, but it's worth it. It'll drive up return on ad spend, profitability of ad programs, and it's worth it. I encourage everyone to pay attention to those geeky details. You'll be grateful when you do. The second piece is once all of that data is in the ad platforms, you want to look at the attribution that's available inside of the ad platforms. You need to do all this configuration to then find where all your data is being transmitted in the ad platform so you can decide which campaigns are doing well, which audiences are doing well, which ads are doing well. And there are a lot of details in how you look at that, but that's the second piece. But that alone is also not sufficient. The third and last piece is around test design. You need to think carefully about how you structure your ad program. If you're going to do a massive brand push in TikTok, or you're going to aggressively bid for some keywords in Google, you want to be careful about when you do pursue these different strategies. You'd want to think about doing one at a time or doing them in different geographies, because if you only rely on the attribution in the ad platforms, they have an incentive to tell you that their platforms are doing the best. If anyone sees an ad in Meta, whether it was going to drive them to buy or not, Meta is going to take credit and tell you my ROAS is the best. I'm Meta, I'm the best. No, Google's going to tell you I'm the best, or TikTok, I'm the best. Right? Everyone, they have incentives that you think your performance is the best there. So this type of test design, where you move one lever at a time and you're really thinking about what is accurate and what is truly growing your business incrementally, as if you weren't doing, it's only happening because of this. The three of these together is how you can truly drive results that matter, results that are trustworthy, results where when the founder and the operators decide to run the ad program, they don't think twice when they're thinking about investing in it, versus oftentimes when they call GMA to get started, the first line they say to us is, we run all these ads, but I don't believe that it's doing anything. Like, what if I just shut everything off? Like, if you think about that statement, how much confidence do you think that founder has in their ad program when they're pouring tens of that, 5, 6, 7 figures into their ad program? So that framework will help. It takes a little bit to get to. There are a lot of details, but it's a very helpful framework. It's been very helpful for us.
Yeah, that's great. I think super, super helpful and definitely beneficial to our listeners. Let's pivot a little bit to CRM, because while paid media might get more attention, it's the back end systems that often make or break a company's ability to scale sustainably. You've worked with a lot of teams whose CRM systems were slowing them down or just outright failing. So I know you mentioned before this 70% number. Why do you think up to 70% of CRM stacks break down? And what are the warning signs founders should watch for early on?
Yeah, CRM stacks, especially in B2B businesses, right, where businesses are the customers, it could be the lifeblood of a company. Every employee's using it, and to me, it's so unfortunate to even be able to discuss with you, CC, a stat that up to 70% of CRM stacks fail. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of money being invested in here. If you think about companies like Salesforce, HubSpot, Zoho, I mean, all the different CRM companies, they are enormous. Their software is in companies across the world. And to think that 70% of CRM is failing is very scary.
Yeah.
So the reason that we've seen, and our team has worked on a lot of different CRMs over our careers, is that people who are working on CRMs, the software is very exciting. The websites are beautiful. The plugins and the technology is exciting. The use of AI is exciting. But the underlying business workflows, there's just a there's a lack of understanding around the business workflows at companies and at startups. You would think, let's say a startup, 20 to 50 employees, not that big, how many processes can there be? But we constantly hear about the symptoms of there's manual workarounds. We have spreadsheets. We send data to this offshore team to process it and then put it back into the CRM. There's fragmented data. We have different teams entering in data, the same data, into different areas of the CRM or even different systems. And then we hear about teams yearning for all the data about a single customer. Can I just see everything about CC in one place? Like, why do I need to go to a spreadsheet and then a CRM and then a homegrown system and then that system and that system? She's just one person. I just want to know what's going on so I can have an effective conversation. I don't want to prep for so long. Those are the types of comments. If you hear those comments, you're thinking about those, you're frustrated with those. Sometimes it leads to some frustration between teams when the teams actually could have a tremendous relationship together, but these could get in the way. And those business workflows, they're more complicated than one thinks. Mm-hmm. When we work with companies, we'll map for a lot of for larger implementations. We'll map the entire company's flows in a chart, and it's fascinating. Even with a company 20 to 50 employees, it could be enormous. All of the different handoffs that happen between teams, all the pieces of data that happen, all of the different systems. There's a lot that goes on in companies, and when you get traction and things are moving really well, uh, processes are being created very quickly, and before you know it, it could just spiral out of control. So that's what it could look like. That's in our experience, why the number can be as high as 70%. And the nice thing is that if a company is willing to get deeper into that level, and oftentimes, like, who's going to look into this? This is, again, it's very geeky. We love geeky things here at GMA Growth Engines. We like going that extra layer deep. If you have teams in your company that do that, then great. Sometimes there'll be operations specialists, or I don't know. There are a lot of different names. If you have them map your company flows, and do that exercise before you do the next work on your CRM. But if you don't, get some help. Map those flows. Think about what you really need to break through, and then you can really design a CRM that's going to help your company. It's going to make it easier. Forget about failing, but actually make it easier. Work across sales, support, marketing, and finance. And what we've seen so far, using this methodology, some of the results are really, they're exhilarating. A sales team we were working with, they were able to decrease the time it took to quote prospective customers from 2 hours down to 20 minutes. Imagine trying to send out a proposal, and every time you want to do that, it takes you 2 hours, and now you're doing it in 2 minutes. Like, they're really excited, and it's making a big impact. We worked with another company where they had an army of people that were dealing with support tickets, and they still had tickets getting lost left and right. They're now at a 97% support ticket resolution. They were also expanding. They were worried about having to hire 5, 10 people. After the CRM was cleaned up, they didn't have to hire a single person, and they were able to handle these new partnerships and new geographic expansions. And then all of that, I mean, the really ironic piece was that for one of those companies that I was thinking about, they were able to reduce the number of systems they were working with by double, and then they also reduced their software spend by 2x. So going into those deeper levels, there is an upfront cost of time and investment into thinking things through and really getting that understanding. But if you're willing to do that work, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be more complex, more expensive in the long term. It's usually the opposite. Your costs tend to go down, you get more scale. It's just, I think that's actually really why the 70% number is there, is because if you think about it, who wants to spend some money up front? It seems so easy. Like, let me just go get some cheap software. I'm going to DIY, no problem, get it all working. And that's the way we think. We're humans. We're our investors are in Wall Street or in VC, and who wants to make that upfront investment? But I'll tell you, for the companies that do, it makes a big difference. And they're not worried about the 70% stat. They're worried about how fast they can grow and how much of a force multiplier their CRM is. So again, we're very geeky here. We love these details. So if the details, I apologize if the details, it's too much for, I'm boring you a little bit with those
No,
details,
it's great.
CC, but I want to answer your question. And
Yeah,
those details is what really makes the difference.
100% agree. When a CRM is working, it truly is like a superpower. Like you said, unlocking efficiency founders didn't even know existed or was possible for their companies. When a CRM is done right, like you said, it can seriously unlock a lot of operational benefits, from quoting to automation to global scaling. So you've obviously touched upon it answering the last question, but Can you give us a deep inside look on what a true high functioning CRM actually does for a team?
Yeah, so I did allude to some of what that looks like, but just to really crystallize it, um, it enables automated workflows. So if you think about all different aspects of one's business, startups, small business, companies, how are you intaking tickets, onboarding flows, refund eligibility logic, sales processes, qualifying leads and marketing. There are so many different workflows that a company does to run its operations. There is so much capacity to automate and simplify those workflows when you embed when you really work closely and design a smart CRM. We spoke about centralizing all customer data, having a really clean data set, which is hard. You not only need to think about all of your processes, you need to think about all the systems that you're dealing with. In CRM, we call it CRM tech stack implementations because typically, at minimum, we're dealing with 2 to 3 major application plugins with any CRM implementation. And when you're interfacing with different systems, the settings and configurations between those systems could create an awful data set. It could muddy all your data, make it hard to get value out of your data. We were talking to a nonprofit one time that was plagued for over a decade with dirty data, and they had done cleanups over and over and over again, and they were so frustrated because they're spending a lot of money on each cleanup and they keep reverting back to the same place, and it turns out that they need to go into the settings of all of these integrations to get at the root cause of why all their data is dirty. So centralizing the data across the entire tech stack to see it in one place, again, back to so that the sales rep or the customer success rep can see all the different interactions and information about CC. Then we spoke about driving faster decisions and better collaboration. Speed in startups is so critical. You want to move at the speed of light or the speed of startup. So a highly functioning CRM is going to allow you to move quickly. A lot of times we say that technology is supposed to enable people, but too often people are prisoners of technology.
Definitely.
So a highly functioning CRM puts people in the driver's seat, and they don't even need to think about technology. They can really think about their business and how to hit the next milestone. And then the last piece that I would say is AI. I love AI. My team and I and our clients, everyone uses AI all the time in every function of all their work. And what we've seen is that AI can be a tremendous enabler to everybody, but where it becomes more than just an enabler, it becomes transformational, is when you have this solid foundation, then AI can really unlock things. Imagine, right, when I'm trying to prepare for a conversation with CC, sales conversation, and I'm looking everywhere to try to figure out all this information, right? If I'm an AI agent, LLM, and I'm trying to do the same task for Jason, it's going to be pretty hard if I use all of my compute, all my compute power to find all the relevant data, as opposed to if I give myself or I give the LLM a rich record about CC and I say, do A, B, and C so that we're ready to sell her like a really good system. It's going to spend its time really thinking about how to come up with the best angle, really give me all the prep that I need, and give me the most intelligent answer that it possibly can, versus burning out when they're trying to find that record. So I think what's going to be very interesting is as companies and people get more comfortable with AI and they start to realize that you still need to have a great foundation, which, it's again, back to the upfront cost. Do you want to do the upfront work, or do you want to just let it rip and go quick? But if you have the discipline to build a solid foundation and the growth mindset to truly embrace AI, and you put the two together, watch out. It's the potential is big.
I love that. It's very exciting as well. But unfortunately, that is a wrap on this episode of the Funding Blueprint. A huge thank you to you, Jason, for taking us deep into the system side of startup growth. We've covered so much ground today, from why CRM and advertising infrastructure aren't just nice to haves, but true non-negotiables for scale, to how to clean data signals, conversion tracking, incrementality testing can completely transform your ad performance. Jason also broke down why up to 70% of CRM implementations fail and what founders can do to actually get it right from the start. So if you're building a startup and trying to grow in a more intentional, scalable, and data-informed way, Jason's insights today were packed with practical takeaways. Be sure to check out GMA Growth Engines to learn how they're helping companies across industries turn fragmented systems into true growth machines. If this episode gave you something to think about, do us a favor, subscribe, leave a review, share it with a founder or marketer in your network. These conversations are made to be passed along and shared. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much again, Jason, and we'll see you next time on the Funding Blueprint.